Avengers!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Excelsior, the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. Welcome to 2021. This is your first episode of the year for January 9th, 2021. I'm your director, Christian Buckley, joined, as always, by the Apex legend, Jack Martin.
Excelsior, Christian. It is very good to be back.
How was your break?
It was good. It took a very long time, but I finally secured a PlayStation 5. Thank you. It was a lot of hard work, by which I mean sitting in front of my laptop and just hoping and praying for an opportunity. And I got it, finally.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was good. How about you?
Pretty good. The break didn't feel like it was actually a break until like 6 days ago.
Yeah, I hear that.
But other than that, had a good time. Chipped away at the backlog a little bit. But I want to ask you, since you did get a PlayStation 5, how long did it take you from plugging that bad boy in to trying Avengers on it? Like, was it an immediate thing? When did your brain go, I need to play Avengers on this machine?
So there's a thing you can do on the PS5 where you basically just transfer all of your PS4 data to the PS5. I only did that, I think, with my save data because I didn't want to take like hours to, download all my games. I just did them all separately. Eventually, I downloaded Avengers to my PS5, and it was probably like maybe a week or so until I was like, all right, let me check back in. I still have like the Kate challenge card to do. She's still like level 70 or whatever it was. And I was playing around with it for a little bit, and I was like, there's really not that many differences to it. It kind of feels largely the same. And then I was watching a video because I was like, I can't believe there weren't too many improvements. And I saw that someone said 60 frames, and I was like, wait a second. I never had the PS4 Pro. I was not familiar with the option of turning on performance mode.
Yeah.
So instantly went back in, turned on performance mode, and oh boy, does this game play like a charm on PS5. Solid 60 frames, like almost 100% of the time. I honestly played through it and I was like, wow, this feels like the way the game should have been played. And it's incredible.
I'm glad to hear it because I have been playing on PS4 Pro since launch, since the beta even. Like, anytime I played this game, it's been on Pro. And when I turned off some of the graphical things like chromatic aberration and stuff like that and put it in performance mode, it's been mostly stable for me, like, since launch. I don't think, again, based off just raw impression, I don't think it's hitting 60 constantly, but, like, it's up there, so, like, performance was never an issue that I had with the game, but I'm glad that you're able to fully experience it in a way that makes it even better for you.
Yeah, I mean, and this is only the like PS4 version running on the PS5. So yeah, this has me very excited for the full next gen version. But right now, I'm honestly like just jumping in to just play it in 60 frames because it's just fun. Like the game had that base already on PS4, and the fact that I can just enjoy it more because I'm not encountering these like hiccups or whatever, it makes the game much more fun. So yeah, I've been loving it.
That's awesome to hear. So, for those that aren't familiar, this is the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast. Worth reiterating because it's a new year. We might have some new listeners because, Jack, the holidays occurred. So people might have gotten this game as a gift. Maybe you got some gift cards laying around. The game's been on sale a lot. I think it's still like $30 on the PS4 right now and PS5 in turn.
You'd be hard-pressed to find this game at full price.
Yeah, so welcome to the community. We are going to go over this week's War Table, as well as give our hopes and predictions, our top 5 things we want to see most out of Avengers in 2021. And in the back half of the show, we're going to run through a nice little preview for 2021 in Marvel as a whole, the big content that Marvel's bringing in 2021. But first, why don't we kick the show off the way we normally do with Fury's Report, going over all the ongoings in Avengers for this week. First up, the low priority mission, global presence. I think this is the New York mission where it's like, hey, the Avengers are back, and then you go like free those people in the streets of
Um,
Manhattan, you know?
yes, it's the one at night. I
Oh,
have it
okay.
pulled up here right now, and yeah, it is in Manhattan or at least somewhere on the Eastern Seaboard.
Hmm. So that is your low power mission. Your high power mission is masks. I read the description of that. Is that the Kate Bishop mission?
I believe so. I did play this today.
Uh-huh.
Again, like we've been saying, like this entirety of the show, it's like kind of difficult to even find the high priority and like low priority missions, because like you can't pull up your missions and they're there. You have to like go through on the map to find them.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I think it is because I did play through that today, and I played it as Kate, and man, it's funny. It is funny to play through that as Kate because the whole premise is when you play that through in taking aim, you're forced to play as Iron Man, and you're talking with Kate via like I don't know, walkie-talkie or whatever it is, the system that they use. And I'm playing as Kate, but also like the sound from my character is Iron Man. And
Oh
when you
my
get to the
god.
point where you're supposed to see Kate, she's nowhere to be found. But like you can hear her speaking in the level, and if it's like she's a ghost almost. Like you can hear her, but you can't see her because technically the Kate that I'm playing as shouldn't be there. So it's it's a ball. I recommend you all play it just to see the spectacle of it because it's funny.
That is so weird.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Oh my, like I understand, like that's weird because that's not. They had a couple options of like what they could have done. I feel like in
Yeah,
in
they
that.
probably just shouldn't have chosen this mission.
Yeah, but because like I don't see a world realistically because of how they are trying to make their own canon and universe and laws of their world where they have Ashley Birch record dialogue for Kate in that mission, right? Like that's not a thing they do.
Hmm.
But to go further and like have her voice lines be tied to the world and not the character, that's strange. That's a choice. That's a choice. It's like
Yeah,
peeling back the layers of how the development works, which is interesting, but yeah,
I was
that sounds
expecting to
weird.
find like the Kate Bishop that you're supposed to find in there,
Mhm.
but she's not there. Or if she is, she's invisible.
Oh,
Which is like I thought there were going to be two Kate Bishops, and I was like, this is a great photo mode opportunity, but
mhm.
not there.
That's pretty funny. If you want to run the harm room this week, you can get Ms. Marvel #4 from 2014. There's two other little bonus things I want to talk about for Fury support. One, yet again, man, these skins, not the best.
Nope.
There is one in the shop right now. I'm considering buying. It's Kate with like the tank top, and it's like the right side of her outfit is purple and the left side is black. It's like a Two-Face division
Hmm.
kind of like that one. So I might grab that. But the other thing that caught my eye over the break on the subreddit is apparently because your character progress and stuff like that, like the save data is tied to your system in
Right.
Avengers, where a game like Destiny, your progression is tied to a server. You can finagle your way through the settings in the PlayStation or Xbox or whatever to change the date and time in your system, and the game reflects that. So,
Yeah.
one, that alters the shop. So if you want to, like, I think, I don't know if you can only go back in time, that would make sense, but like, if you change your date and time on the console, you can have a different item shop than what's available in the marketplace. And in turn, this also resets your dailies and weeklies. So if you really wanted to bang out a challenge card in like a weekend, that's your answer.
So that had me particularly excited about like the doing the challenge card stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I tried doing this. I went forward in time, not thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and I was still online, so that might have, you know, affected it somehow, and it didn't work for me.
Okay.
But the way you said it, I honestly I might even try it right now. I have the game pulled up.
Sure.
I might try going back in time and seeing how that goes, because
Yeah.
that's huge. You can just like do all challenge card stuff like instantly. And I'm sure on the Reddit there's a bunch of like, hey, this is what the outfits were or the skins were for this past week, and you can go and see what it is, and if anything appeals to you, you can go back in time and get that skin.
Yeah, I would assume that's how it works because like when there are new skins, they get added to the game. You know, it's not like they're baked in there and it's just on a timer. Um, so I'd assume you'd have to go back in time to change things, and I would also assume that because I found this on the subreddit where the devs are pretty active, I can't imagine they want people to be burning through challenge cards at a exponential rate because of this. So I could see this get patched out eventually. So if it's something you really think you'd want to try, I'd probably do it soon. But yeah, because like Destiny had exploits like this, and they were patched out sooner than later. Whenever there's a big notable one, so worth putting out there. I'm probably not going to do it, but you are free to do so. So
Mm-hmm.
with that though, we're going to breeze on over to our Stark Reality segment where we're going to look at our wish list, hopes, dreams, expectations for Avengers, Square Enix's Crystal Dynamics' Marvel's Avengers in the year of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Jack, what is the first Excelsior wish that we want to put out into 2021?
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of stuff that we want to see in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And these will reflect basically what we've been saying for a while. The first thing that we want to see regarding this game is stable communication from the developers, Crystal Dynamics, and also the publisher, in some aspects from Square Enix. I think we've seen good communication about this game from the devs,
Mm-hmm.
specifically before this was released. Like the war tables they were doing and describing this game like made us better understand what the game would actually be. And after launch, like between Kate coming out and after launch, like we were getting some good updates from them saying like, hey, we're fixing the game in certain aspects. But recently, we haven't really heard too much from Crystal about the game. After Kate release, it's been kind of quiet. So yeah, I think just hearing like more weekly updates and stuff like that would be nice.
Yeah, and we do get the War Table blog every week, but I do think it would be nice, like you said, pre-launch, almost immediately post-launch, there was some consistency of like, hey, this is the list of like things. Like we have a list of things that we are working on for the game, and obviously, I feel like a list would look different in January of 21 than it would, or what we had in like week 3 of September last year.
Yeah.
But I still think a list of things that are being worked on and updating that pretty regularly would be welcome, you know? And I know you don't want to overpromise and you don't want to make people think certain things are coming sooner than later when in reality you don't know when they're coming, but I do think communication regardless, like we all own the game now, you know, like I will feel much better about the future of this game. And I already am a believer in it. Like I'll feel much better if pretty consistently we get like a hey, we are working on the raid. Hey, these are the things we're adding to the raid. These are the things we're fixing about the raid.
Yeah. Even like if it's not even a fleshed out roadmap, just something like, hey, these are things you can look forward to. We don't know when they're going to come, but like this is what we're working on at least. Like what you're saying.
Yeah, because I think naturally, if you are building a list like that, even if it's not a formal capital R roadmap, like there will be weeks where you are continuing to reiterate that roadmap, and then one week a piece of content on that roadmap will be ready to go in depth about, you know? So I do
Mm-hmm.
think it would be better to be very transparent for me as a player of this game, even if it's not super exciting, just so I know, you know, that like, yes, we know things are being worked on, but like, show us that, you know, like, really, we're on your side with this. You know, we want it to be a good game. We want it to be the best it can be. So just reaffirm that.
Yeah, 100%. What's another thing, Christian, that we're hoping for?
I wanted to. be modest with this one because I think last year, pre-launch, post-launch, even up until Kate got pushed to December, I think you and I think a lot of people in the community were like, "Hey, I could see a world where we get a hero a month based on that leak, based on everything." I'm gonna say for this year, at least 6 heroes.
Yeah, I mean, like once every other month.
Yeah, I feel like that'd be
That's fair.
fair, you know?
Yeah,
Because I know they've said that each character is going to add a villain. I don't think each character is going to add like a giant patrol war zone area, you know? Like,
mm-hmm.
we know Black Panther's coming eventually. You would assume Wakanda is going to be a significant area in the game.
Yeah,
Hawkeye, I don't think is going to add a significant area, you know? Like, I can't
no,
imagine that Spider Man adds like Times Square to the game or anything crazy like that, you know? Like,
mm-hmm.
I think if we set our expectations to be like, okay, 12 months in that time, 6 characters, we already know two of them being Hawkeye and Black Panther. Four to surprise us with, I guess Spider Man would make it seven, but I think keep your expectations in check for how many heroes and we won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I mean that's a theme for this game is keeping expectations in check. And yeah, the characters you just listed off, like that's it. We're halfway there of the ones we already know, and it's
Mm-hmm.
January, so that's good, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. And yeah, I do hope we get at least six. I hope it's more than that, but I think six is good to look at. And every time I boot up the game, I see with Kate now, like the addition is just like growing that screen wider. And I think by December 2021, if we have six more characters involved in that, it's gonna be really exciting just to boot the game up and see all the options that are available to you.
Yeah, man, because like, did you ever play the original Ultimate Alliance?
No, I never did.
So the original Ultimate Alliance, I think they had a pretty modest roster. I was like definitely less than 20, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But just that was such a huge introduction for me with Marvel. Like that's how I learned about Doctor Strange when I was like 7. Like I knew about these weird obscure characters because they were characters in this roster in this really fun game. And if Avengers can reach that point, which we've thrown out there since like you and I actually got to play the game of like, oh, it's Ultimate Alliance with a AAA budget. Like I really think there's potential for them to grow in that avenue. So I think 6 is a fair expectation for this year.
Yeah, I agree.
So, what's next?
So this is one where I feel like we've talked about this essentially every episode. Where Marvel's, I think I could speak for the both of us. Square Enix's Crystal Dynamics' Marvel's Avengers
Mm-hmm.
biggest problem is multiplayer, where it's there and technically it is kind of the focus of the game when you think about it. But there's really no reason to jump in every week. You should be able to jump in every day, really, and play it and like gain something new from it. Compared to like a Destiny or another game that is viewed as a platform similar to the way that this game is viewed as, or honestly should be viewed as. And I think that's the biggest problem. So we're hoping that there are reasons to actually play the multiplayer and get something satisfying from it. Because
Mm-hmm.
right now, you and I can just jump in and mess around and go through a hive or a sector or something like that. And we can't get anything out of that experience that we can't get out of playing it alone with our roster of heroes, right? Like, there's really no difference.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like a raid, which I think is all but confirmed, potentially for Wakanda. That'd be great. That's a reason for people to jump in. Um, so yeah, I think if we get something like that, and if we get constant multiplayer updates, I think that's a way that this game is going to start to proliferate again.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully,
Now, I think in line with that too, of like, hey, there needs to be content that's worth playing multiplayer for. I think the rewards have to also be a good enough incentive. So I do think some people might not like this, but I think whenever we get a raid, we need raid exclusive costumes. Like
yeah,
yes, it's content, so that's an incentive to be like, hey, I can really only play the Wakanda raid if I'm playing with other people. That's an incentive alone, but I do think this game and other games about loot and gear, half of the reason people get a dopamine rush out of it is because you get a reward and you get to show off, right? And
Mm-hmm.
this game's gear structure, it is what it is. It's fine, you know?
Yeah.
It's nothing special, but I do think you really have to have a reward. More than a nameplate, more than anything else. So, having a good set of raid exclusive skins that you get for completing the raid, I think is essential and absolutely should be one of the biggest focuses for all the raid content in the future.
Yeah, that's an excellent call, Christian.
Hmm.
I mean, take a shot every time I mention Apex Legends, but
Yeah.
uh, in an Excelsior episode. But like anytime they do a seasonal update, I'm sure it's probably similar with Destiny. There, and this is a free to play game, so it's slightly different. But
Hmm.
there's always skins there that you can buy that are exclusive to that like week long period. You can essentially apply that logic to the raid, where like sure the raid, the way I understand raids, will always be there,
Hmm.
and the skins will always be there too, but you have to go through it to actually get them. And
Correct.
I like that idea of being like, hey, I did this with my friends and I got this cool skin out of it. And it should be cool because they haven't really had a lot of cool skins yet, but it should
Hmm.
be cool.
Yeah, and I've also talked about this, you know, like number one mention for me is Destiny, but I think behind it is probably Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Like that is a four-player co-op game that is has a really strong single player with a solid raid. And the multiplayer raid in Ghost rewards your team with an exclusive costume that you can only get for completing the raid. So, where Destiny's gear is like you beat the raid, you get raid exclusive gear, like a helmet or something. This game's answer to that is costumes. Now, whether that is like some vibranium inspired Wakandan designed outfit for everybody, or if it's like, hey, you beat the raid, you get the MCU skins for the characters. I don't know what avenue they should do, but I do think you need something um, like a vanity reward for doing it. So,
Yeah, that's a really good call. So yeah, overall, I think multiplayer needs a lot of workings, and there's a lot going into that. But speaking of what we've been already mentioning, Christian, what's the next one that we want to talk about?
um, I mean, I think we can just throw this in there because we were just talking skins. Good skins in general. Like, I think this year needs skins. I think this new year needs some good skins.
Yeah, we haven't encountered too many good ones. I think I got maybe two when Crystal was like, "Hey, here's some free, like currency to
Hmm.
spend," and like everything was half off. So I was like, "Sweet, I might as well." But
Yeah.
that was pretty much it. I haven't really been incentivized to go out of my way to get skins.
Yeah, agreed. I got the glitched Thor because I had a feeling I'd get a refund and I did. So other than
Did,
that I have not got any others. But
did you eventually get that one back?
oh I did, yeah. I think
Nice.
it's been a minute since I've put it on, but I think the hair is like not the short hair Thor anymore. I don't
Mm.
know. They could have fixed that too, but I do have the skin currently. But
There's a funny glitch anytime I spawn in as Kate wearing, I think it's the Leica costume.
hmm.
It's like her in that T-shirt from the Matt Fraction run,
Hmm.
and she spawns in with blonde hair like immediately, and then you move and she reverts to brunette hair. I think it's hilarious.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Um, Now, when we say good skins, I think MCU skins are on that list because that's just so, again, you go on the subreddit. I saw that somebody on the subreddit recently has been doing edits, so like they've been photoshopping the current skins in the game, like mashing it and meshing it to look like what a Marvel's Avengers take on the Cap skin would look like, and they're really good edits. I don't know who it is. I can try and find it and shout them out right now, but
Yeah. I
it
did see the Avengers Infinity War Thor skin, and I was like, wow, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so it's not just an us thing. I think it's the community at large really wants those MCU skins.
Definitely.
Yeah, it looks like Sod underscore NJMH on the Play Avengers subreddit has been posting some edits, which are very, very good. So shout out.
Yeah.
But Jack, what's this? The last one, the last big wish from Excelsior to Crystal and Square and Marvel for this year.
Are we on the seasonal events one?
We are.
Okay. So we we missed out on a couple
Mm-hmm.
this go around. Of course, I think they definitely have a pass because they launched the game in September. Immediately, Halloween rolls up, and they're like, "Oh man!" And then, of course, like Christmas or holiday events around December. But yeah, they were right off launch, so like I don't think it was that reasonable for us to expect any sort of seasonal events to be taking place. Like I kept saying, just give me one pumpkin. That's all I need.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh well. But I think this year it is reasonable to desire and maybe even expect some events around holidays. Like if we like Christian, you mentioned why don't you mention your good suggestion about the Halloween Marvel Zombies one? Because I think that's cool.
Yeah, so we've seen if they want to make it work lore wise, we have a portal to different dimensions. Like we have that already.
Yeah,
Um, but I think Halloween, similar to like what Overwatch does for Halloween, Destiny has the Infinite Forest where it's a unique area where it's like all spooky and there's some like mangled up enemies that you typically fight normally, but they look scarier, um, or they're corrupted. I think having Marvel Zombies would be really cool because it allows you to get a fun limited time event, which could honestly be a reskin of the wave based rooms we already have in Hives, but like it's fun this way because it's not a robot. You could have like tons of Easter eggs, like maybe a Marvel zombie that you'll be fighting is like a zombie version of Punisher or Daredevil or Spider-Man or Wolverine or anybody who might not be on the list to get into this game, but I'm assuming they have free reign of since it's basically forging this new Marvel universe, right? Like tons of Easter eggs in there. Basically a horde mode. Like just make a horde mode in this game. You're basically already there, but make it a fun skin of a horde mode available for the month of October.
yeah, I think that would be excellent. Even just like set decoration, I'd be
Mm-hmm.
cool just like booting this game up and it's snowing on the helicarrier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or like there's a Christmas tree in um, the ant farm and like Christmas lights and stuff. Or there's like a menorah, like all these places. Like that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just that, I'd be satisfied. But yeah, having like a nice mode like what you were saying around for like a week around each holiday, I think that'd be
Mm-hmm.
nice.
Yeah, like another thing. Again, I'm sorry to bring up Destiny, but the PvP in Destiny has a thing called Crimson Doubles in February. It's like a Valentine's Day event where it's PvP 2v2. So it's like you and your partner, and it's a really fun festive thing, and it lasts for a little bit in February. Like I think there's plenty of opportunity for limited time events that are seasonal and themed around holidays that could fit well and have a really nice vibe in the Marvel universe that could I think the game already has heart in its story, especially with its characters, but I think in the living world aspect, the game could use some heart.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think those are our wishes.
I think
Unless,
those are reasonable.
yeah,
Like we didn't we could have gone pretty pretty deep into like what we maybe wished for, but I think those are some pretty. Oh, maybe we should have included "Don't fuck us, Genie"
yeah.
as a
Um,
safe. Don't screw us on this one.
yeah, like if we want to throw a Hail Mary pass, we know the one thing I think both of us want from this game is a Battle of New York style raid. Like,
Yeah,
I know it's a tall ask, but Crystal, if you can get that, if maybe if it's not even this year, but if you can like commit to that at some point, and then maybe we get it like summer 22, like that is the only thing that I desire out of this game aside from maybe Wolverine being a character. Like that's about it.
I honestly think the next 6 months will be a really good showcase of what we can expect from Crystal going forward. Now that launch is like in the rearview mirror, and they lost money on this. Square Enix like announced that, and they basically just have to make their money back at this point. So I think they're in full gear and like trying to get stuff out the door essentially. So I think this will just the next 6 months and definitely this whole year will show the future of this game. So
Yeah.
it will
And
be interesting.
I believe in it because I really do think it has a strong, solid, really, really fun foundation to it that just needs to be built up a little more. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, agreed.
But meanwhile, Jack, we have all of our hopes and dreams about this game in 2021, but Marvel is back with a vengeance in 2021 in a lot of avenues. So we're going to run through a brief little preview about all the big Marvel content dropping in 2021. First up, though, I think we should talk about Marvel games because this is primarily a Marvel game podcast. Avengers content, we already touched on briefly. But we know for sure Hawkeye, Black Panther, Spider-Man on PlayStation, those characters are hitting this game this year.
Yeah. And presumably in the next 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, I think that's like first half, I think is a safe assumption.
Yeah.
Now, if we want to go with this arbitrary number 6, not counting Spider-Man because he's an exclusive, 4 blank slots. You pick 2, I pick 2. Who do you want the most out of? And who do you expect hits this year for this game?
Okay, some of these I'm going. So we already got Hawkeye and Black Panther. That's out of there.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
have 4 open slots.
4.
If we want, we could each do one we think is obvious and is absolutely coming, and then one
Yep.
dream.
Okay, I like that.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna start with the obvious one. This is based off of leaks, and so skip ahead if you want. But I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've probably seen the leaks.
Mhm.
I would like War Machine
Oof, nice.
as an Iron Man player,
Mhm.
and probably I would say an Iron Man main. It would be nice to have, given that you can't play as the same characters as your friends, it'd be nice to have a backup. If I go into a lobby and someone wants to be Iron Man, again, I don't play this game with anyone, but in that hypothetical reality, if I go in and someone's like, I really want to be Iron Man, I have him as level 150, it's pretty much the only character I got, I'd be like, that's fine, I got my War Machine, let's go to town. That'd be fun. And I think it'd be a cool story to have him in this game, and it would be nice to see like sort of back and forth between Tony and why am I forgetting Don Cheadle's characters?
Rhodey?
Rhodey. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. That'd be cool.
Okay, I like that. Similar, this is based on leaks, so take what you want out of this, but Captain Marvel, like that's Carol Danvers is absolutely going to be added to this game.
Yeah.
I think we could get an interesting back and forth considering you're talking about War Machine because in the comics, I'm almost positive that they have a thing. At least in Civil War 2 they did, right?
I forget Civil War 2. That just kind of went out of my brain. We did that whole comic series last year, and I forget.
So I'm pretty sure they had a thing. So I don't know if they'd want to adapt that or not, but you reminded me of that because you did pick War Machine. But I think Captain Marvel is a safe bet for this year, mainly because they tease her a lot, and she's so tied to Kamala that it would make sense since Kamala is basically the main character of this take on the Avengers.
Yeah.
I think Captain Marvel Carol is going to show up sooner than later.
Yeah, I think we were mentioning the summer, and if they did like a whole Kree invasion sort of plot line in the summer, that'd be a nice way to get people back in. Have like a raid or something. Yeah, that's a good choice.
And I'll throw out I already said it, but Logan, Wolverine, please.
Yeah, that's a good call. And I think I think Wolverine is a good way to introduce the X-Men, because like clearly he is the X-Men. When you think of X-Men, he's that guy. And once you just have him introduced, you can just start to be like, all right, let's have Jean Grey come in. Let's have Cyclops come in. Like, you can just start like pulling from the X-Men. So I think that's
Yeah,
a good
and
idea.
even if they don't, if they want to save the X-Men for an X-Men game, Wolverine has been an Avenger. I think he's been an Avenger more than Spider-Man has. So like, get Wolverine in here, please.
Yeah, good call.
So,
Okay. Speaking of Spider-Man,
ooh,
here's my rationale for the next pick.
okay.
Daredevil.
Ooh, I like this.
So PlayStation exclusively is getting Spider-Man
Mm-hmm.
to the chagrin of a lot of people, which is fair. I think it would be nice to offset that exclusivity with a character that everyone can have around the same time
Mm-hmm.
in Daredevil. He plays, I feel, somewhat similarly. Like, he's a very like loose character rather than like the strong, rigid sort of type.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would presume that he would swing around via his like nunchucks that have like the wire. I know he does that in the comics, and I think maybe the series. I'm forgetting. But like similar enough where you can just be like, "Hey, we're sorry." Obviously, not say this, but we're
Yeah.
sorry you didn't get Spider-Man Xbox players and PC players, but here's a character we think you like, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be a good way to sort of offset that sort of disgruntlement.
Yeah, I think Daredevil's a great choice for this game. Mainly because I expect him to sort of. We've talked about like the shadow characters of other people in the game already, like you did with War Machine and Iron Man. I think Daredevil's a perfect example of that, but for Black Widow. And I think
Yeah,
based on what you're saying and coming at it from that Spider-Man angle, I do think they can make Daredevil work really well as a mesh between the Black Widow we have in the game and what we're assuming Spider-Man will be. So I like that idea a lot.
yeah. Honestly, just make him play like Nightwing from
Yeah,
the Arkham
exactly.
series, and I'm
Hmm.
sold.
Yeah. So we'll see what the future holds this year for the heroes of Marvel's Avengers. But in the other realm of the Marvel Games universe, you did bring up Spider Man and
Mm.
PlayStation. We don't know what's up with E3 this year, but we do know that Sony likes to tease games that are a ways out. Do you think we get Insomniac's Marvel's Spider Man revealed this year?
Christian, I would be surprised if we didn't,
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like of course, Miles Morales was in development for like a while, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it was released the way it was. One, obviously, to sell PS5s, and two, to be a stopgap between 2018 Spider-Man and the next like full-fledged sequel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was like put out there to be like, hey, here's some Spider-Man content now, um, but you'll have the sequel like fairly soon. I don't think we'll get it this year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm thinking 2022, like to have that gap from 2018 to 2022. I think that is somewhat reasonable to expect,
Yeah.
given that the head Brian Intihar, I believe, on 2018 Spider-Man was not the like game director of Miles Morales. It went to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So presumably he would be working on the full-fledged sequel, the Spider-Man 2 as it were, or Spider-Man. So yeah, I do think we see it because I think that game's actively being worked on, and I think it's probably deep into development at this point.
I agree. I think it's next year. So because if you break it down that way, you would have had Spider-Man in 2018, Miles Morales in 2020, and then Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man in 2022. So every
Yeah,
2 years, I think is pretty fair. And then if we want in 2024 to get a Spider-Gwen game to bridge the gap between Spider-Man and Spider-Verse, then go for it. But like, I think based on the conversations we've had, I think that's a fair assumption because the groundwork was built for 2018 to the point where there's not a ton like mechanically you have to redo or recreate for the map between Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. You can just
no,
add more, you know?
yep,
So like
yeah. I
similar
think
yeah.
I think that's what it'll be. Is just like, hey, here's Brooklyn now, or like Brooklyn and Queens,
Mhm.
and or like flesh out the neighborhoods essentially.
Mhm.
But yeah, they like what you said. They have that map, and I think they'll just make it prettier. and I think they'll just include Miles now and just have the swapping between the two, essentially.
Yeah, that's the hope. So,
Mm-hmm.
do you expect anything else this year from Marvel games? I, bring up Spider-Man because I think that's timely based on schedules, and Avengers we know for sure. But other than that, I don't think there's any locked in releases for Marvel games this year.
I'll bring up like maybe we hear about this. I honestly am questioning if this is canceled or not now. The Guardians of the Galaxy Square Enix game
Yeah.
that we've been discussing. They haven't shown it off at all. I know they've talked about it. I know you've been talking about it recently.
Hmm.
Um, I would not be surprised if that game's just totally scrapped because Square Enix looks at the numbers from Avengers and the budget of that game was so high that even like having an impressive debut didn't offset its budget and it undersold. Like as publishers do, they would probably look at that and be like, I don't know if we want to. If Avengers didn't sell that well, how can we justify the release of a Guardians of the Galaxy game? You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, so yeah, I just bring that up because I'm unsure of the future for that particular project. So
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to be worried about. I think Eidos was attached to that. They shipped Rise of the Tomb Raider or Shadow of the Tomb Raider in 2019.
yep,
And they've done a little bit of support on Avengers, but yeah, I could see a world where, honestly, because of Shadow and like the direction that game was, I could see a world where whatever this Guardians game is not living game esque. I could see it just truly be a single player game like Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
yeah,
Um, but if we don't hear about it this year, then I'd assume it's canceled. So,
right,
in the same vein, I'll throw out there this is just wild speculation. I'm convinced that Xbox is still working on something because Nintendo got an exclusive, PlayStation got an exclusive. Xbox is like shopping around constantly. I'd be surprised if they didn't get an offer, but
yeah,
we'll see.
yeah. Microsoft, like a lot of people have been saying this since the Bethesda purchase, but Microsoft has the money and the weight to just throw around, and I could totally see that happening. So
For
that'd be
sure.
cool. Wolverine game, dude. Let's do it.
Oh boy, yeah. I would buy an Xbox. I'm already thinking about buying one. I would absolutely buy one for that.
Hell yeah.
With that, though, let's bleed on over to the Marvel Universe as a whole, specifically the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think we should lead with this because we got new MCU content today, January 8th.
Yes.
Marvel Cinematic Universe Legends, I believe. No, it's called Marvel Studios Legends, right?
I think it's just called Legends, but like Marvel Legends. Yeah, I think.
Okay. Um,
Please describe it the way you wrote this in the doc.
so we talked about this announcement, I think, on the last episode of 2020. It was like,
Yeah.
hey, experience the journeys of all these characters in the Marvel Universe. Like, what I have written, MCU Legends is just long fan cams.
That's so true.
Yeah. So we
Because
got,
we were
mhm.
wondering like what these would even look like.
Yeah, like, I don't know.
I was like, is it gonna be like Kevin Feige being like, Wanda is such an integral character, and then like Elizabeth Olsen's like, oh man, playing Wanda has been excellent, or like stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. It's just long fan camps essentially.
which is like cool. It's cool that Marvel is like they have people on staff. Like it would be awesome if they like hired someone that was like, "Hey, you make like good fan cams. Why don't we get you involved on this series?"
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just like it's dialogue that is like representative of the arc of Wanda and Vision because those are the only two episodes we have. They're each about 8 minutes. Um, it's dialogue throughout all the movies they were in, paired up with shots about integral character moments to really catch you up. Because, like, what we kind of speculated, there's 23 MCU movies. We're about to get a bunch of shows. Not everybody's seen everything. This is the way you catch up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's a refresher, and honestly, like for someone like me, and maybe even for you, maybe you found this too. Like it's a good refresher going into WandaVision. Like even
Yeah.
though like we knew everything that was in there, you and I, it was good to see again and be like, okay, now I have Wanda and Vision on the brain going
Yeah.
into WandaVision. And like what you said, this this won't, like, we're not gonna get a Legends, like episode or whatever you even want to call it, like once a week. We're gonna be getting it, like, I can almost guarantee you the next two will be the Falcon and Winter Soldier for when that show comes out, and it'll be pretty much the same thing. We're gonna get their integral sort of story moments, and it'll tee us up for what we can expect in that show. So yeah, I think for each project we'll be getting the main characters' Legends episodes.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe and smart bet. And I agree, I will co-sign what you said because let me tell you, I was watching the Vision one and it started up. I was like, holy shit, I forgot Vision started as Jarvis. Like it's been
Yeah.
that long. I was like, wow, that okay, yeah. So I needed this.
Something else I forgot, well, not forgot, but like the emotions I felt for these characters. When I watched Infinity War, I was so surprised how in I was to their relationship.
Hmm.
Usually with, like, especially with MCU relationships, I'm like, all right, this is just like big blockbuster movie needs a, like, romance, so I guess it's Hulk and Black Widow. It's
Right.
like, okay. Um, but I was so into their relationship. Like, they really made it work in that one movie. And it goes back to, like, the comics of those two characters, like, sort of embracing a relationship. But yeah, I think we'll see that played out hopefully very nicely in WandaVision next week.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's very quick.
Yeah. So next Friday will be the first episode of WandaVision, kicking off the MCU in 2021. Um, Moving forward, every week of Excelsior, in the back half of the show, we will have a review of every WandaVision episode, spoiler discussion, recapping what we see every week. Um, Both of us are pretty excited for this. Wanda is like, well, first off, I just love Elizabeth Olsen, but
Yep,
Wanda I like a lot as well. So I'm excited to really see her flex because she's a great actor, and I really think Wanda has so much potential for the future.
totally. I just reread Tom King's Vision. We
Hmm.
did that. I keep saying last year, but I guess it was 2 years ago at this point in
Jeez.
2019. Yeah, weird. Um, but we read through that a couple years ago, and I reread it, and it's, of course, given the title, it's more focused on Vision, but there is definitely some incorporation with Wanda in that series. And WandaVision, I think, will be a sort of synthesis of both characters, but I have a sense that I've only seen like one or two trailers. I have a sense that Wanda is probably more in the focus of that show, um,
Yeah.
given the fact that she's alive, and I don't know how they're gonna incorporate Vision into this show. I guess we'll see, but I think she will be the focus of that show. But I do hope that they incorporate the tone of Tom King's Vision into the show because it is very dreary and dark, and from the trailers, it seems like it's heading in that direction. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I've been pretty media blackout. I think there's been another trailer since the last time we talked about the show, but I haven't watched that. I am expecting it to be like Wanda creates realities so Vision she can live a life with Vision that she couldn't have because Thanos killed him. But
Ooh, Christian, now that you say that,
yeah,
that seems like the way in spoilers for Tom King's Vision. Skip ahead 30 seconds.
mm-hmm.
That seems the way like Vision creates his own family,
Mm-hmm.
like for Wanda from
Mm-hmm.
like him not being able to pursue that relationship with Wanda.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like we might get the inverse
Yeah,
with
dude.
Wanda doing that for Vision. That'd be great.
Yeah, and hopefully when she breaks everything at the end, that's how she creates the X Men. So,
Ooh, let's do
um,
it.
the next thing after WandaVision in March, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm really excited for this. Winter Soldier is still my favorite Marvel movie. Do you think Steve Rogers, Chris Evans, Captain America has a cameo?
Um, I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
I'm gonna be pessimistic about it. I think he's done. I think if Chris Evans comes back, it'll be like in a few years for some like weird cameo. But no, I don't think we see old Steve. I think we left off in like a really perfect note with him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Honestly, I think he's probably dead at this point. I don't know how long this takes place after Endgame, but if he does have a cameo, it will be like a photo of like really cheesy like old Steve like in the middle of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier or something.
Is there a world where they make old Steve Rogers the new cameo in every movie?
Oh, I certainly hope not. I
No, yeah,
certainly hope
I
not.
hope not to.
That would be funny though.
Hmm.
Actually, no. If they just, I bet, I bet it starts off like the first episode, and there's a mention of, or there's even a scene of like, we're at the funeral for Captain America, similar to how they did that in Civil War with Peggy Carter. So
Sure.
I think he's dead.
Other than that, though, are you looking forward to the series? I know, is Civil War still your favorite?
Yeah, honestly, dude, I kind of want to do a rewatch of the MCU and just like start clean. But as of now, yes, Civil War is my favorite. So, I think Winter Soldier is safe MCU. Like it's not doing any of the weird stuff that we are anticipating in Phase 4 because we've been saying Phase 4 will be the weirdest phase probably
Mm.
in the MCU. But this is more like traditional sort of maybe spy espionage stuff that we got with the Winter Soldier. That we might get with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So yeah, that certainly has its place in the MCU, and I'm definitely excited.
Yeah, agreed. I bring up your love of Civil War because since we both love a movie in the Captain America trilogy, like this should be pretty high up for our like most anticipated, you know.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't think about it too much, which is
Hmm.
weird. Not like that you do mention it. It should be up there, and it is. Like I'm very excited for it, but I think I'm more anticipated. I'm anticipating like WandaVision more because
Sure.
it's gonna be, I think, more of a tone setter for what we can expect for Phase 4.
Yeah, like I feel like we know what we're getting with Falcon and Winter Soldier, you know.
Exactly.
Hmm. May though is gonna have some interesting things because I have no idea what we're gonna get with this Loki,
Mm.
the next Disney Plus series hitting Disney Plus for the MCU. Loki taking place for the first time, I think, building off of a new timeline for the MCU.
Hopefully, first and only. I think this is first and only.
Well, it's interesting you say that because when we were talking about Captain America, I think this could be a completely different episode, but I would love if a few years from now we get one final Captain America movie with Chris Evans, but he's like back in time Cap. It's like him dealing with Vietnam because I really liked when Cap was dealing with Vietnam in a Spider-Man comic that I read
Hmm.
because he was super against it, and I think that could be an awesome send off for him if we do like one last ride. But I don't think that Loki and new timelines is the norm, but I wouldn't be opposed if we explore that now and then.
I could see the show giving. So, yeah, he's back in like that weird timeline. Now that he like messed it up, I
Hmm.
could see the show at the very end of it just putting Loki back into the timeline
Hmm.
and giving him back like in a strange way that makes sense. Um, or just killing him.
Yeah,
I don't think they give the opportunity to have two timelines because I don't think that makes sense.
sure. So if Loki goes the course we're expecting, I think it could be interesting because I do think this show potentially exists for Taika to get Loki back in Thor 4.
Yeah.
Um, because I think that would be an interesting relationship if in this series Loki goes on more of like a hero arc, so he gets that evolution earlier in his what we know as his arc in the MCU, right? Like this is immediately Loki after Avengers 1. So if he becomes a more anti-hero player like after the events of Avengers 1, I'm curious to see how that changes his character and if he does get back in Thor 4, how he plays off Thor.
Yeah, it's similar to Nebula in Endgame, um,
Sure, yeah.
where we went back in time and it was Nebula from like 2014, and she was obviously in the villain role there, and she hadn't had her arc yet.
Hmm.
So yeah, it will be interesting to basically have the New York Loki thrust in, like what you said, thrust into the hero role, or I guess the anti-hero role,
Hmm.
and see where that goes. Because I think there's a lot to be had there.
Hmm. And it is worth adding on that as of 23 hours ago, IGN was reporting that Loki season 2 is reportedly in development.
Yeah, that I did not expect.
Yeah.
So I guess he's not dead by
Yeah.
the end of that show.
Hmm. But you know who is dead?
Yep, I
Black
sure do.
Widow.
She's dead.
Um, Black Widow's hitting in May of this year, as well, like same month as Loki. I still don't know how to feel about this movie. I don't know what it is. Where are you with it?
It's a weird one for sure. This was intended to be the kickstart to Phase 4 before, obviously everything happened. And it's weird because, yes, she's dead, and this is a movie that takes place in the past. And it's also, like, just tonally, seemingly, more like what we were mentioning with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's more of like a traditional MCU movie, right? It's not like the weird Phase 4 WandaVision or Loki or What If stuff that we're gonna see with Phase 4, even like the weird Spider-Man stuff with Spider-Man 3. It's this like sort of traditional action movie with this character that's already dead. Presumably it's going to be a torch passing movie for someone in that film to take the mantle of Black Widow.
Hmm.
But yeah, it is weird seeing a character that had her send off in Endgame in such a great way. I think that was the best Black Widow appearance we've seen in an MCU movie. To have that sort of like maybe undersold with this movie, hopefully not, but yeah, it is strange.
Yeah, like I think we're all on the same page where we all think this movie should have happened a long time ago.
Right.
So from that point, I'm wondering, and because it's a prequel, I'm wondering if, like you're saying, if it does feel more traditional, but like phase 2 or 3 traditional. Like I don't know what to expect from that avenue. I love Florence Pugh, so I'm glad that she's in this movie. And I, clearly, it's supposed to have some sort of tie into the future if it was meant to kickstart, even though it's a prequel.
Yeah.
Um, but it's definitely one that I'm not like super enthusiastic about, because I feel like the delays hurt the hype for the movie. Because I think out the gate it was already a few questions. It wasn't like Black Widow hype. It was like, oh, Black Widow choice, but I like her, so let's see what this movie's about.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of
So
on the same page still.
for this movie, when it was intended to be the first film in Phase 4, for me at least, maybe you were on this page too, where I was like, okay, whatever, but it's also like we're getting the MCU back. And
Hmm.
that was the momentum with this movie back in, like, I don't know, February or March of 2020. And I was like, all right, Black Widow, sure, whatever, but like we're getting Marvel back. And that was the weight this movie carried. And it doesn't have that anymore. So that is sort of stripped from it, but regardless, I am still excited to see this film.
Me too. Uh, Next, we're getting into a little bit more of a vague one. What if the Marvel animated series is hitting this summer? It does have returning cast members from the MCU. This is Chadwick Boseman's final MCU performance. He did a lot of, I think he recorded a few episodes, they said, of What If as
Mm-hmm.
T'Challa. I think his specific arc is What If T'Challa was Star-Lord, which I think is a really cool concept.
Yeah, that's that. Of the ones that I know about, that is really interesting, and I'm stoked for.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him play off of Michael Rooker. Like that's gonna be so good.
Yeah, what an odd pairing that I know the MCU is so adept at, making work.
Hmm.
So that is super exciting.
For sure. What If is hitting this summer. Again, this is gonna be more of a fun one, very fan servicey probably, but it's another weird one that I'm excited for.
Yeah, totally.
What I'm potentially the most excited for though is this July, Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is the full title.
Yep, that's it.
I am stoked for this movie, Jack,
Tell me why.
because I think it's doing something that is going to feel like it fits in the MCU because we're fleshing out the 10 rings. But in the same path, it's doing something new for the MCU where, listen, I have my issues about the way Doctor Strange tackles like Asian culture. So like getting an authentic version of that through Shang-Chi, I think is going to be dope, and it's going to be new for the MCU. And seeing that and like an action movie in this avenue, but fleshing out the Mandarin and the Ten Rings, maybe peel back a few more layers about why the Ten Rings were so infatuated with Tony in Iron Man 1. Like, I think there's going to be some solid connections to the MCU there, but also I think it's just going to be a fun action movie that I'm more excited about than Black Widow at the current state and time. If we're just stripping it down to like, hey, probably traditional Marvel action movie. I think they're comparable, but I think the concept of Shang-Chi to me is more interesting.
I'm definitely with you on this movie being something new for the MCU, and that's what has me particularly excited about Shang-Chi. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Shang-Chi uses kung fu, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so I essentially just want them to make a Bruce Lee movie, and I think that's pretty much what they're gonna do, where it is more grounded fighting than it is like. I'm sure that this will be incorporated, like the big spectacle of it, but man, imagine if we get this movie gives us a Daredevil hallway scene, right? Like that's the sort of grounding I'm expecting from the focus on kung fu and focus on like the personal combat rather than like these big bombastic battles. That like I feel like for Shang-Chi, like of the stuff that I know about the character, which is very little. But I feel like the combat and his combat style is so integral to the character in a way that isn't to other characters. Maybe Black Widow is like the closest one. But I think that focus is going to be center stage for this film, and that has me really excited.
Yeah. Also, some of the enthusiasm does come from Simu Liu on Twitter. He's a very, very funny person, and I like him, so
Yeah,
I'm sure he's going to kill it as a lead.
definitely.
Late 2021, Ms. Marvel, a show that is going to tee up, presumably Captain Marvel 2, because we know Kamala Khan is going to be a big player in the sequel to Captain Marvel. This one I'm interested in because I really love Kamala after Avengers, and I'm curious to see how similar the MCU take is.
Yeah. We've talked about this before. Like, Ms. Marvel, I think, in the Avengers game was really important in terms of representation, both in the character herself and, her identity. And I think this will follow like a similar line of introducing people to that character and her identity. But yeah, I think this is one of the projects I'm most excited for in Phase 4, given the lineup we've seen, because Ms. Marvel was a character I felt so in love with through this game, and I'm excited that I didn't realize we were getting another take on the character so soon and to such a wider audience that I feel like with the momentum of the game and their take on the character, I think it's going to be great. And we saw like a little bit, like barely anything, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point. But what we have seen has me excited.
Very nice. You know what I'm not very excited for, Jack?
Dude, I'm right with you.
Eternals.
Yeah.
Now listen, Eternals has a stacked cast. It's a really solid cast. Like Angelina Jolie, Kumail Nanjiani, Richard Madden, Kit Harington is in there, I think. So like,
I think it's the other Stark brother.
I think they're both in there.
Wait, really?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
I think Kit Harington was also cast.
Interesting.
So Eternals is supposed to be this like, from the way they pitched it, it's like a sword and sandal almost epic about the Celestials in the Marvel Universe. And as a concept, I love that. I truly think that's awesome because I really like, as cheesy as it can be, I kind of like the movie Troy, but like I think if we get a Marvel version of that, but space, that could be really cool. I'm a little worried that it's gonna fall into the trap of being Guardians and Ragnarok again. You know?
Yeah, like I'm with you. I don't know what the tone of this movie is, and I feel like they could either go for the Guardians and Ragnarok route where essentially space is just comical and it's fun and that's great, but I don't think this movie could have that. If it does it again, it just wouldn't have a unique identity. And if it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't go for that route, it would just go for the traditional MCU identity. And I don't think that would really stick out. And dude, honestly, I have a feeling we haven't seen anything from this movie, but I think the Eternals, more than anything on this list, has the potential to be the first bad MCU project, or like first in a while since like Dark World. You know what I mean? I feel like this might be up there. Given we haven't seen anything, but I just have a gut feeling. I don't know about this one.
Yeah, because like, listen, I think like it could be really good. It genuinely it could be good. I don't think there's anything we can compare it to based on the way they've been talking about it so far. And the only
Yeah.
thing from a fan perspective we can compare it to is the other space movies, which are Guardians and Ragnarok. And I don't know how that vibe of those movies fits with the grand epic of the Celestials. You know, like I'm having trouble picturing that in my head. Um, Marvel has made that work in the past. Like when they announced Guardians, I was like, this is a super cool idea, but how's it going to work? Um, so there's definitely potential. Chloe Zhao is the director, and I'm pretty sure she's like been in some like Oscar talk at times. So like
Ooh.
I'm sure it's gonna be good. I feel really weird about it right now.
Yeah, I'm with you. To paraphrase Sheev Palpatine, we will be watching your career with great interest. This
Absolutely.
is the one I'm like looking for. Be like, what's gonna happen with this one? So
Hmm.
I'm dialed in to just see what happens with this movie.
For sure. Late 2021 as well. Hawkeye, starring Jeremy Renner and Haley Steinfeld.
Hell yeah, dude.
I have high hopes. I hope it's a good send off for Clint. I hope he gets like a shred of the character he had in Age of Ultron, and I hope he's rewritten to just be the Matt Fraction Hawkeye.
Yeah. I think they like there is a lot to Clint's character in the MCU, but it's just kind of hidden away, right? Like
Hmm.
like what you said, Age of Ultron, he got the sort of shining light in Endgame. Other than that, he's kind of been swept under the rug, and we haven't really gotten to see a lot of him. Um, but yeah, I'm excited for this one. I think Haley Steinfeld is like the perfect It's almost like fan casting from Star Wars with
Hmm.
Ahsoka and Rosario Dawson. Like that is just so on point. Where they just nailed it, I think. And yeah, I think she's gonna knock it out of the park. So that's exciting. And yeah, given the fact that we just saw Kate in the Avengers game, man, like they're nailing it with Ms. Marvel and with Kate Bishop. That's great.
Yeah, Kate Bishop is the reason I'm excited for that show because like even if they don't rework MCU Clint to be more like comic Hawkeye, which is the Hawkeye I love. I think MCU Hawkeye is kind of weak personally. Like I think he shines in Ultron, but other than that, really not much for me.
Right.
Um, she's the reason I'm excited because the vibes they're giving off so far does feel like it's inspired by Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. Like it's the same logo. So
Yeah.
if not Clint, then Kate will be close to Kate that we know. So that's exciting.
Yeah. I agree. I think Kate will sort of be the spotlight of um, this particular show. I think the title Hawkeye is probably, of course, referring to Clint, but I think by the end of it, it is like Kate's the new Hawkeye.
For sure.
So, yeah, very exciting. I think this is up there for me. I think WandaVision, Ms. Marvel, and Hawkeye are the ones I'm eagerly anticipating.
Interesting. All three of them are shows. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
point. I mean, I guess the majority of these are shows.
sure. Last but not least for the MCU, we have Spider-Man 3 hitting December. First question, do you think this gets delayed?
No way this movie comes out in 2021. Like, no way.
Okay.
I would be very surprised. What about you?
I mean, they're shooting it. I think they're done shooting it, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, yes, but they're they are shooting it, and the thing is though, like I feel like they're also gonna have to keep shooting like scenes with characters because they were like in talks with certain characters they wanted in the movie. So like I don't think this movie's done like shooting at least.
Yeah, like this movie will definitely have reshoots. Like if I've ever been able, like every movie has reshoots, but like these will be public in the news. Like a million YouTube videos being like, "Is Spider-Man 3 in trouble? Is Disney ruining Marvel?" Like those videos will pop up because of the
Yeah.
reshoots of this movie.
Tobey
Um,
Maguire is wearing the same jacket that the Spider-Man B wore in Into the
yeah.
Spider-Verse on set.
Um, I'm still listen. I like MCU Spider-Man a lot, so I'm excited for his third movie, and I love Tom Holland as the character, so I'm ready for this. I do have my reservations, and I personally think I'm on that side that's like if Toby and Andrew are in this movie, they're in it for like the last 20 minutes max. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm very curious to see how this unfolds.
I rewatched Far From Home recently.
Hmm.
Enjoyed it noticeably more than I did 2 years ago when it came out.
Good to hear.
I went on Letterboxd and I saw your ranking. If I'm not mistaken, is that movie your number 3 MCU movie?
I think so.
Damn.
I saw it in theaters twice, but I
Yeah.
really liked it. Because listen, I like Spider-Man Homecoming a lot, but I do have my reservations about Iron Man in that movie.
Mm.
And while I think Far From Home, his presence is still there in like a meta way, I like that Robert Downey Jr. is not in it, you know?
Totally.
Um,
And you feel that absence.
you absolutely do. And I think even if a lot of the movie is him mourning Tony, I do think it's still following his arc beyond being a shadow of Marvel heroes. Like I do think that is a really solid next step in growing as Peter Parker Spider-Man that we all know and love. So I that's why I
Yeah.
really like Far From Home a lot.
So with the end of that movie where he's talking with Happy and he basically like makes his own suit,
Hmm.
that is Peter saying, I'm my own person now. I
Yes.
don't need to follow in the footsteps of anyone. Like I can
Hmm.
just be my own hero. That is so perfect.
Yep.
And what I'm worried about with this movie having all these characters in it, I agree. I think it'll probably only be minimal, hopefully. And
Hmm.
that's, I think, will be successful. My issue would be if these characters play like a major role in the movie and Peter is looking up, even with Doctor Strange, I'm worried about looking up to someone
Hmm.
as like the next, quote unquote, the next Tony Stark. Like he needs like a role model.
Hmm.
Um, I think that would ruin the forward progression they made with Far From Home with his character of him just being a standalone person now and he doesn't need to look up to anyone anymore. Like he had that and he's on his own path. Like what Yoda says, like we are what they grow beyond. That's Spider-Man with Iron Man. So
Hmm.
for this movie to be successful, I think it would be an independent Spider-Man for the majority of the movie, and by the end of the movie, maybe he's questioning himself or something like that. Like I don't know if I could do this by myself, and it's the past Spider-Man being like, "Hey, you're on the right track. Like just we didn't have anyone, and you're in that part now. Like you got this." Like that would be successful to me, and they got to walk that fine line.
Hmm.
So I'm worried, and been mentioning this. Like, I don't want Sony getting its mitts in this movie, and I think it is. But yeah, I'm worried. Definitely worried.
Yeah, I think there's fair reasons to be concerned. Based on the track record, I do think they will continue that path. They've been walking with Spider-Man, which listen, I will eat my words if it doesn't end up that way, but I do think that the plan all along has been we get a trilogy of him being just a kid, influenced by a ton of heroes, and then the second trilogy is the Spider-Man that everybody complains that he's not. I really think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Um, but speaking of Sony, we do have two Sony MCU or Sony Marvel movies coming this year. The first of them, I don't know which one's first coming release wise, but Venom 2 is this year.
Ugh.
You didn't like Venom?
No, Christian. We've had this
I
conversation.
know.
I don't like Venom. I've told the story of when I saw Venom when I was studying in Dublin. I went to this theater, and before the movie even started, like during the trailers, a light from the ceiling fell and broke like a row in front of me and almost like murdered this woman. And I was like, oh no. And that was clearly a sign like, hey, get out of here when you can. The movie theater was telling me, get out of here. It's not going to be a good movie. And it wasn't. So no, I didn't like that movie.
I think it's fun. Um, in like a cheesy, dumb way where it's like you're laughing at it the whole time. And like, I think the movie's aware to a certain degree that you're laughing at it, but like it's still trying to be serious. So like,
Yeah.
I like that from it. And if they continue that vibe, I'll be happily watching Venom 2 in a theater with a big bucket of popcorn and laughing at Tom Hardy being a fool. Um, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm very curious how they're going to handle Carnage. Probably terribly.
Yep.
But while I think Venom has a sense of humor about it and kind of understands how it exists, I don't think Morbius does. I think Morbius is going to be uber serious. Jared
Yeah.
Leto trying to like get back what he probably viewed as an Oscar-worthy Joker performance, like being like, I can bring salvation to comic book movies now and get my academy. Like I think that's what Morbius is gonna be. And I will see it for Michael Keaton.
God, dude, I don't even know where to start with this movie. Like there's so much awfulness regarding Morbius that it's like impossible to even begin where to talk about. I don't like Jared Leto. I think he's just his ego is the worst, and he just seems like a terrible human being, sending
Mm-hmm.
like ridiculous things to his castmates for Suicide Squad, and just being pretentious as all hell. Like he seems kind of terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird vibe the trailer brought, I was like, I don't know what this movie's gonna be. I think you're right. It seems super serious. The PS4 Spider-Man JPEG in the background, like what? And I think the most offensive thing with this movie is its integration in the MCU, where tangentially, in a way, it takes place in that universe, and I don't want it to be there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I can guarantee you this movie will be bad. I can almost guarantee you. I would be surprised if it wasn't. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't want the MCU, even tangentially, to be marred by the Sonyverse. Like, I don't.
I'll say this about it. I haven't seen the trailer in a long time. I liked. There's that like very brief shot of him in the makeup, the getup. It looked practical from memory. So if they're doing that type of thing, and if it's like, I don't have a lot of faith about this, but if it is a like a slow burn, like sort of classic monster movie type thing, like a Jekyll Hyde thing, I could be interested in it. I don't think it's going to be good, but if that's the path they go down with this, I think that's an interesting concept to explore in a Marvel character film. But yeah, I don't have faith, like you said.
Yeah, there was a quote recently that I pulled up. Um, and he did say that. He said, described it as a Jekyll and Hyde story that's just big and fun, and sometimes a little scary, which is, I think, different for the genre. That's what he said. And then he also said it should be a big, fun popcorn movie, which is
Hmm.
weird for him to describe a movie because he is, like I said, like just this super pretentious actor. Um, and it's almost like he's underselling the movie he's going to be in. But,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe he's bitter after the Suicide Squad debacle. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like he
Probably.
wants it to be like, oh yeah, it's gonna be whatever, and then like people see it, it's like, oh, it's actually pretty good. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I have zero faith in this movie. I'm expecting it to be bad. Um,
Yeah.
so
I know you shouted out your top three, but do you want to reiterate what your most anticipated are out of all these projects?
yeah, so overall, Phase 4 is going to be weird,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that will bring good and bad things. But I think for me, the top three would be WandaVision, and then it would be Ms. Marvel, and then Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
about you?
I'm thinking WandaVision, Shang-Chi, and then Spider-Man with a big shout out to Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
I think that's where I'm resting right now. But
nice.
yeah, that is 2021 for Marvel. I'm sure there will be some exciting things in store. Maybe we get a small tease at the X-Men this year. I know I've been bringing it up a lot with WandaVision. I hope she creates the mutants. We don't have to touch on it for a couple of years, but I hope that like whatever she does awakens that gene so we can start planting the seeds, you know? But
Mm,
I have high expectations for Marvel this year.
totally. I think X-Men is the stinger at the end of Phase 4. Like the last Phase 4 movie has like the end credit scene where it's X-Men. But
Yeah.
if we got it in January or March or February when this ends,
Mm-hmm.
oh boy.
Like when I say, let me reiterate because WandaVision starts next week. When I say that WandaVision introduces it, I'm saying like somebody wakes up and they're like sweating peanut butter or something weird, okay?
Yeah.
Like something that is clearly a weird X-Men mutation, and then nobody talks about it. And then at the end of Phase 4, like a post-credit scene, Wolverine shows up. I think that's
Right.
what I'm talking about.
Right. We like it's a very small tease and we don't get the payoff until Phase 5. Yeah,
Yes.
I got you.
That's what I say when I'm saying WandaVision kicks off the X-Men.
That'd be cool.
So,
I'd love that.
yeah, man. I'm hopeful, but we will talk about these peanut butter mutants next week with the first episode of WandaVision and continue on the Marvel's Avengers coverage. But until next week, Jack, where can the agents of Excelsior find you?
Sure. You can follow me on social media at Fascinated Jack. How about you, Christian?
You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch at Chun2D2, CHUN number 2, D number 2. It's a new new year, new me. This show is available youtube.com/joyclicks for the video version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify for the audio version, your podcast service of choice. If you can rate a review on that platform, it would be greatly appreciated because it helps us out a ton, maintains us being the world's #1 Marvel's Avengers podcast into the new year. We also have Patreon, patreon.com/joyclicks at the $1 or $5 tiers. You can help support us and all the shows here, as well as get producer credit. So if you would like to do that, it'd be greatly appreciated. All these links are in the description of the YouTube video. And I think that wraps it up. Final question, Jack.
Yeah.
By next episode, new war table?
No,
No.
I don't think so.
No. Yeah. I don't think so either.
Yeah. Ending it
Maybe
on a
we-
real pessimistic note.
Yeah, maybe like end of the month we get a deep dive on Clint. Maybe that.
Yes.
So
Before
we'll see.
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, sure. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Good thing to judge on. But until then, Excelsior.
Excelsior.